Okay, we're at 130 people with 11:02. I think we will start. I'm going to hand over to our chairman, Philip Klinikos.
Thank you, Mark. As Mark said, we're sitting here in the boardroom of Isdale House, and our secretary, Dr Isabel Human, is fairly close to us. I might just start off by saying that Isabel has recently received a second doctorate, and that is in COVID-19 sanitary measures. The smell of sanitizer is permeating the air. She spaced us out more than the regulatory 2 meters. Coughing and sneezing will be punishable with 10 lashes from a whip. And we may only lower our masks on special request. So Isabel, may we please lower our masks while we speak. Thank you. Okay, on behalf of the board and management of BirdLife South Africa, I would like to welcome you all to the 91st Annual General Meeting, which we're hosting remotely this morning from a freezing Johannesburg. But we are quite warm inside the boardroom here, and Isabel has promised us soup and sherry as soon as we are finished. Before we start the formalities, I would like us to devote a few moments to the memory of our former Honorary Treasurer Tony Zogby, who passed away since the last Annual General Meeting, as well as the memories of our members, donors, and supporters that have also passed away. Thank you. It was most disappointing that after a significant amount of effort and planning, the envisaged flock in the wilderness, which was to have been held last month, had to be cancelled due to the lockdown restrictions imposed by government resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. We sincerely appreciate all the efforts that the Lakes Bird Club, BirdLife Plettenberg Bay and Nature's Valley Trust devoted to the planning and hosting of this event, and hopefully an AGM can take place there sometime in the future. In terms of our constitution, we are required to convene an annual general meeting within 6 months of our financial year end. In other words, before the end of June. The board was quite rightly of the opinion that it would be impossible to convene the AGM physically within this time frame, and a resolution has been passed allowing the AGM to be held remotely this year. Systems have been put in place to ensure that we firstly have a quorum, and then that we have a clear record of all attendees, and there will be adequate opportunity for participation by all. For this purpose, the Zoom platform that we have chosen makes provision for questions to be submitted, as well as a chat box should you wish to submit any comments. Both will be monitored during this meeting by our coordinator, Melissa Howes-Whitecross. The proceedings of the AGM will also be recorded and will be ratified at the next AGM. I'd like to just hand over to Mark now just to run through the meeting protocols for today. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Philip. So just even to repeat a few things that Philip has said, I think most of you are probably familiar with Zoom, but if you have any questions during the AGM, please use the Q&A or the chat function to type your questions. We'll be monitoring those questions, and Melissa and Isabel will also indicate if we do miss any. Also indicate if you'd like to ask a verbal question, and we will unmute your microphone. Now, there's a lot of power usage in Johannesburg at the moment with this cold weather, and there could potentially be a power failure. If there's a power failure, you're going to have to give us 10 minutes to just switch on the generator, and we'd like you then to click on the Zoom link again and come back into the meeting. If you experience any technical difficulties during the AGM, and you need some assistance, please contact Isabel, and her email address and her phone number is over there, so you can actually give her, drop her a mail or call her or WhatsApp her, and she will see how best she can assist you. Note as well that we're recording this AGM, and it will be uploaded to BirdLife South Africa's YouTube channel within a week. We need to ensure that a quorum is present. Our constitution clearly stipulates that we need 30 members at our AGM, so we'd like you asked to please raise your hand if you're a member of BirdLife South Africa. Melissa will do a couple of screenshots so we can at least verify that we have a quorum present at this meeting. So Melissa, I think people should be raising their hands. For those who don't know how to do so,
63 already.
We've got 63 hands raised. So we're just going to wait a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds for Melissa just to ensure that those hands are captured. That we can at least know that we have a quorum present. It is very important to us We are ensuring that we follow all correct protocols. Okay, I'm sure that's given Melissa sufficient time. So I'm going to project the agenda on the screen now and then hand back to our chairman.
Thank you, Mark. First item on the agenda is apologies. Our Secretary Isabel has been collecting apologies. If there are any further apologies that need to be submitted, if you could please email them through to Isabel to keep on record for purposes of the AGM. We can then move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the 90th AGM that was held in Johannesburg last year. And for those of you that were at the AGM, if you could please, just by way of raising your hands, confirm that the minutes are an accurate reflection of the proceedings of that meeting. The board has already confirmed that that is the case. We have some hands, Mark.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure, Melissa, if you can just take a screenshot of those hands that are raised. I'm sure that's given you sufficient time. Thank you. Thanks very much.
If there are any matters arising from the minutes of the 90th AGM, if you could please submit them through now, and we'll deal with them in due course. If not, we can move on to the chairman's report. Okay, I'm not going to repeat the chairman's statement and the annual review that has already been published in the annual report, which has been uploaded onto our website. And I'd like to just take this opportunity of just dealing with a couple of matters that have happened subsequent to the report being produced. And obviously the most critical one was the global COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on our organization. Our management and staff have been working remotely since 19th of March, and I can confirm that the work that's being carried out is being done efficiently and effectively and has had virtually no impact on the work being completed by our staff. And we are very, very happy about that we can carry on working quite well under the circumstances. Also like to thank our donors and collaborators who've been very understanding and supportive of the organization during this trying time. We have established a COVID-19 task team consisting of senior management, myself as chairman and the Honorary Treasurer Manuela Kroch. And we have been meeting on a regular basis since the lockdown started and have been dealing with matters as they've been arising. I can confirm that one of the items that we look at every meeting is our finances, and our finances are in good shape for at least the next 12 months, and hopefully for longer than that, but we will keep on monitoring the situation. Our conservation division, under the leadership of Hanleen Smith-Robinson, has also established a funding task team, and this is looking at investigating new sources of funding and innovative ways of working going forward. We are also very, very thankful for the incredible support that our Community Bird Guide Relief Fund has received since it was established, and this has gone a long way to relieving the suffering of loss of income that these community bird guides around the country have been subjected to. And then finally, the financial support for African BirdLife ensures that our magazine can be produced going forward. A lot of magazines have folded during this time, but I'm very happy to say that even though we've lost some advertising income, two of our honorary patrons, Gaynor Rupert and Pamela Isabel, have stepped into the breach, and fortunately this has helped us to keep the magazine going. Right, that's my chairman's report. I can now hand over to Mark, who's going to deal with the President's address.
Okay, our Honorary President, Professor Colleen Downs, is attending this meeting remotely, but unfortunately, due to internet connection issues from her home, she's not going to be presenting a talk. We'd just like to thank Colleen for all she's done for our organisation during the last 4 years. Her term as Honorary President comes to an end today. Colleen has been a dear friend for the last 30 years, I suppose, and she was even a supervisor for my PhD, which unfortunately was never completed. So Colleen, thank you very, very much for your time. Colleen did ask me just to mention at the AGM that the International Ornithological Congress will take place in Durban in August 2022. There's a website with all of the information. I'm sure that a lot more information will be added to the website as it becomes available. But Colleen asked me just to invite all of BirdLife South Africa staff, members, anybody interested in the study of the world's birds to consider attending the IOC in Durban in August 2022. So Colleen, we have a gift for you, which is sitting here in the boardroom. We were going to present it to you at the AGM if we met in Wilderness. So we'd have to look at another opportunity to present it to you. It's an original painting from Birds of Africa south of the Sahara. There's a little plaque in which acknowledges the fantastic support we've received from you during the last 4 years. And we know how passionate you are about parrots and lovebirds and all the great work you do to study and conserve the Cape parrot. So this gift will find its way to you as soon as we're able to send it to you. So Colleen, thanks very, very much for your time. As our Honorary President, we know that you will remain a faithful supporter of our organisation. Thank you, Colleen. Okay, we're going to go straight into the next point, which is the annual report, which is presented by me. And I was initially going to just say 2 or 3 minutes. I did propose this to our Chairman and Honorary Treasurer. I decided to be a bit longer because we would have a very short AGM if I did not present some of our work. And I just thought maybe better to do our organisation and our staff a bit of justice by elaborating a little bit on our work. Before I do so, I'd just like to ask everybody to spare a thought for those who are less fortunate than us in South Africa today during this extremely cold weather. I woke up this morning in a warm bed, stood under a warm shower, and thought about all of the people around the country who are far less fortunate. For those who are able to reach out and maybe donate some food or donate some warm clothing or a blanket to some of the churches and other groups that are collecting for those who are less fortunate, I think we are absolutely privileged, and I do sympathise with those who are not fortunate. So it's a great pleasure for me to report on BirdLife South Africa's work during 2019. And I'm going to give you a brief summary of our work. Unfortunately, this summary would not do our work any justice. And in fact, it would take several hours for me to report on the organization's work and the fantastic achievements we have had during the past year. Our work is, however, summarized in our annual report, which is available on our website. You can also email us and we'll send you an electronic copy if you don't have one. Hard copies will be available at the end of June 2020, and we will be mailing these to our supporters, our Conservation League donors, our Golden Bird patrons, our corporate members, and other supporters. But copies will be available at head office if anybody else would like them. I'd like to thank Bryony van Wyk and Lainey Martin for their design and editing assistance, and to SAPI for funding the production, paper, and printing costs of our annual report. Oops, sorry. So in this report, I do not report on what I've done during 2019, but I'm reporting on the work that our incredible team of hardworking and dedicated staff are doing. And that is our staff at our annual staff meeting in Wakkerstroom in March this year. I think only one staff member was missing from that slide. So I'm reporting on their work, and I would like to thank them very much for the amazing contributions they make to our organization and to the conservation of our country's birds. Starting off with finances, it's a great pleasure for me to say that we ended the year with a net financial surplus of 366,000 rand. And in fact, this is the 10th consecutive year we've done so. I'd like to thank our finance team, headed by our own chartered accountant, Fanny du Plessis, for our organization's impeccable financial administration. We also once again received an unqualified audit. You can see in this image the conservation admin split, and what's encouraging to see is that more than 2/3 of our funding goes towards our conservation work. We are very appreciative of the support we receive from a large and growing number of donors. And I just have a couple of slides just to show you. You can see those are the donors who've donated between 1,000 Rand and 100,000 Rand during 2019. That list has been growing in the decade that I've been at BirdLife South Africa. I've seen that list growing. And then other donors from 100,000 Rand to $250,000 to $500,000, $500,000 to $1 million, and $1 million plus. You can see the number of donors there too. Very importantly, we are very grateful for the growing number of Conservation League donors that we have. These donors contribute a minimum of 2,800 Rand a year to our organization. And in fact, these 160 or so Conservation League donors contribute as much as our entire membership combined. And this unrestricted funding we receive from these dedicated people certainly help us achieve our important conservation goals and objectives. Our funding comes from many sources, as you can see, but I'm very pleased to say that in 2019, we received 2.2 million in donation from 40 Golden Bird patrons, and you can see the list of Golden Bird patrons on the right. We also have a number of corporate members. During the past decade, we've managed to diversify our income streams, and during the current pandemic and economic crisis, this has helped us weather these difficult times. And in your annual report, you'll see this pie diagram, which demonstrates that diversification of income streams. We're grateful to the many people who assist with our fundraising, including Yvonne Pennington, chairperson of our fundraising committee. We also appreciate the work of the BirdLife National Trust, which is the sole aim of growing an endowment to support BirdLife South Africa's work. The chairman of the trust, David Lawrence, is present at today's AGM. Moving on to governance, during 2019, 5 board meetings, 1 board strategy meeting, and 3 audit and risk committee meetings were held. And these 2 committees provide strategic advice to our organization and governance oversight of our work. The chairman of the audit and risk committee, Andrew Mitchell, is also present at today's meeting. Other committees include the remuneration committee and our nomination committee, the latter being chaired by Linda Hart, one of our board members. We also appreciate the report we received from our 3 honorary patrons, Gaynor Rupert, Precious Molloy Motsepe, and Mark Shuttleworth. And it's a great pleasure for me to tell you today that we now have a 4th honorary patron, Pamela Isdell, who's joining this meeting all the way from Atlanta. So thanks very much to our 4 honorary patrons, and particularly to Gaynor Rupert and to Pamela Isdell, who do an enormous amount for our organization. Moving on to HR, we continue to follow high standards in all of our HR work, and during 2019, I can report on the following. We followed very professional staff recruitment processes. For the 3rd year, we were able to do a timely submission of our employment equity report to the Department of Labor. We've been writing and updating our extensive set of 90 policies and procedures, of which 76 have been approved. We had a very successful staff meeting in May, at which skills development training took place, with the training needs being identified during a skills audit. BirdLife South Africa endeavours to provide our staff with a healthy, safe and enjoyable work environment, thus ensuring productivity. In order to measure how successful we are in our efforts, a 2nd annual wellness survey was conducted towards the end of 2019. During 2019, we hired 2 interns, Nalu and Elwani, and they've done really well in our terrestrial bird conservation program. I'd like to thank them for all their hard work. We collaborate with a range of organizations, and I'd like to single out a few. We do appreciate the relationship we have with our mother organization, BirdLife International, our sister organization, the RSPB, and other BirdLife partners around the world. The Fitzpatrick Institute of African Ornithology, the South African National Biodiversity Institute, and the South African Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. BirdLife South Africa staff are represented on a range of international, regional and local bodies, including BirdLife South Africa's BirdLife International's Global Council and the BirdLife Africa Regional Committee. We also have a partnership with the Southern African Bird Atlas Project, and here we partner with the Fitzpatrick Institute of African Ornithology and the South African National Biodiversity Institute, where we contribute towards this project, the most important bird monitoring project in South Africa. I'd just like to report briefly on our magazine and our membership. BirdLife South Africa produced 6 issues of African BirdLife, arguably one of the world's top bird and birding magazines. And I'd like to compliment our editor, Eve Gracie, and our designer, Bryony van Wyk, and the rest of the team for their excellent work. A recently conducted reader survey had a gratifying positive response. It underscored the value and trust that the readers place in the magazine's editorial content. Our membership numbers remain relatively stable, although subsequent to 2019, in January and February this year, we saw a significant increase in member numbers, and this was related to the Flock to Marion bookings, where members were allowed a grace period to make early bird bookings. We appreciate the support we receive from our members, including our Conservation League donors, whose numbers increased to 158 during 2019. We have 41 affiliated bird clubs, and we value the special relationship we have with these clubs and their members. A good number of our clubs are represented at today's AGM, including the chairpersons of at least 8 bird clubs. We published 3 issues of Ostrich, the African Journal of Ornithology, and the editor, Dr. Alan Lee, and his editorial team and NISC are thanked for producing a world-class scientific journal. During 2019, our team produced 12 nicely designed and informative newsletters, which were emailed to about 9,000 people. Our social media reach continues to grow, and at the end of 2019, our Facebook group and page had 31,000 and 17,000 members respectively. We are also active on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Okay, moving on to events. We had a very successful African Bird Fair at the Walter Sisulu National Botanical Garden in September last year. Other events include the Flufftail Festival, and in partnership with Rand Water, the Rare Finch Conservation Group, and other organizations. We held 2 successful Flufftail Festivals in Gauteng last year, and we raised awareness amongst 800 grade 6 learners and 400 local community members during this festival. We also held a very successful Kruger Challenge fundraising event with Rock Jumper Bird Tours, and we used this event to raise funds to allow us to employ the Rock Jumper White-winged Flufftail Fellow of Conservation. During November 2019, more than 1,000 birders participated in the 35th edition of the annual Birding Big Day. 12 Owl Awards were presented to people and organizations who are contributing to the conservation of our country's birds, and we're very proud of this annual event, which unfortunately we won't be holding this year, but we will be using the opportunity this year to celebrate the recipients of our awards during the previous decade. Secretarybird was the Bird of the Year in 2019, and we do appreciate the funding we received from the Hanshausen Charitable Trust towards this annual event. Learning resources are developed and are distributed very widely using social media, our website, and our email to a growing database of educators who make use of these important resources. We also produced an attractive poster, which is included with the March-April issue of African BirdLife magazine. And Secretarybird fluffy toys and pin banders have been sold at events and at our shop. Very importantly, during Bird of the Year, we try and generate sightings of the Bird of the Year. And during 2019, we generated 740 sightings of Secretarybirds. And this information will form the baseline assessment for establishing the size of South Africa's Secretarybird population. We also held a successful Cycle in the Bush fundraiser with Phil Liggett and a fundraising event in Cape Town with Friends of the Ardouan Gardens. A lot of time has been spent during the last 2 years preparing for Flock to Marion, which is expected to take place in January 2021. We were actually quite relieved after almost 2 years of negotiation with MSC Cruises that we were able to secure this voyage. Unfortunately, with COVID-19, things still remain in the dark about whether the voyage will proceed in January, but we do hope to be able to inform the passengers in due course about whether this event will take place. Last year, we had a very successful and well-attended AGM at Nedbank's head office in Johannesburg. At the AGM, Philip Kalinikos and Manuela Kroch were elected as our chairman and honorary treasurer, respectively, and in subsequent 12 months have provided incredible support and assistance to our organization. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Roger Wanless, immediate past chairman, for all he's done for BirdLife South Africa in general, and for me personally. He remains involved in our organization as a volunteer. At the AGM, we presented the Gill Memorial Medal to Professor Claire Spottiswoode, the youngest recipient to receive the award since 1960, when Jack Winterbottom was the first recipient. 24 people have received this prestigious award for services to ornithology in Southern Africa, of which only Claire, Pat Hall, and Bunty Rowan were women. Bruce Dyer was the recipient of the prestigious Orson Robertson Memorial Medal for his outstanding contribution to the conservation of seabirds. During 2019, we revamped our website, which now has a new look and a much improved functionality. And just to report briefly on our marketing work, we have a creative marketing team who, with the assistance of Utopia and Flume, our two pro bono advertising agency, helped develop some really clever marketing and advertising materials. And these included animations for social media as part of our Think Birds campaign. One of the highlights of our marketing work during 2019 was this very effective campaign that we had in collaboration with Gautrain Management Agency and JC Deco. In addition to clever adverts on billboards and digital screens in Gautrain stations, several buses were carried prominent and eye-catching branding. I'd like to thank Vernon Head and Mel Tripp for the voluntary marketing support they provide and for the creative ideas they generate. A brief report on our facilities. BirdLife South Africa remains proud of its head office, Isdal House in Dunkeld, West Johannesburg. The Indigenous garden is now well developed and serves as a model for how it is possible to garden with Indigenous plants in a water-wise and, in fact, bird-friendly way. The building received a fresh coat of paint in late 2019. The materials were generously donated by Promac Paints. Our Wackerstrom Centre, which remains an important hub for birding in the grassland biome and also is important as an education facility, will receive further renovations and maintenance during 2020, thanks to a very generous bequest we received from the estate of Roy Cargill. And we need to thank Steve Davis for facilitating that donation. Materials, paints, and other support have been provided by Durham Paints, Flash Harry, and Chamberlain's for the renovation that we will do during this year. We continue to raise funds for the purchase of a Cape Town office, but the 2 million rand we have received and which has been promised is unfortunately still well short of our target. Okay, moving on to our conservation work. One of the most important developments in 2019 was the restructuring of our conservation division. The process started after we appointed Dr. Hanleen Smith-Robinson as the manager of the division. The work took about 6 months, and we are grateful to Martin Harper, the Global Conservation Director at the RSPB, for providing strategic advice and facilitating a successful restructuring workshop. The result is that our conservation division now has a different and more effective structure, one that will stand our organization in good stead as we undertake our important conservation work in South Africa and further afield in the region. And on the right there, you can see the new structure, which was implemented at the beginning of the year. There's a few important changes. One is that our site and habitat work was merged with our species work into one program, the Landscape Conservation Program. We also now have an Empowering People program, which has a focus on the biodiversity economy and especially AV tourism. And we have a science and innovation program, which we use cutting-edge science to advise our conservation action. So we've managed to recruit program managers for those programs, and we hope to be able to recruit additional positions in those programs as and when funding becomes available. Okay, just to report briefly on some of the species work, the terrestrial bird species work that we've been doing. We're involved in research and conservation of a number of terrestrial bird species. One of the things we've done during 2019 is motivate to Eskom to modify 62 high-risk transformer boxes to prevent the electrocution of the critically endangered southern banded snake eagle. We'd like to thank Eskom for undertaking that work. It's certainly going to benefit this very endangered species. Our team published an article which describes 6 years of juvenile secretary-bird tracking data and which advises our efforts to conserve these regionally and globally vulnerable raptors. Our vulture conservation work included the establishment of Tswalu Kalahari Reserve as South Africa's first vulture safe zone, the establishment of the National Vulture Safe Zone Alliance, which will oversee the implementation of vulture safe zones across South Africa, the establishment of the National Lead Task Team, of which BirdLife South Africa is a member, and the completion of research highlighting the negative health effects of lead poisoning on vulture chicks. And that picture there is of 2 whiteback vultures, a picture I took at Drumfield Farm near Kimberley. We'd like to thank Neville Isdell and Jessica Snack for supporting our vulture conservation work. During 2019, we also undertook research and conservation on a range of other threatened terrestrial bird species, including endemic arid larks, southern bald ibis, and lesser flamingo. BirdLife South Africa continues to produce innovative and cutting-edge conservation modeling products that have assisted BirdLife South Africa in identifying key areas for species conservation initiatives. These models have almost been completed for 96 key threatened and endemic species within South Africa, and this feeds directly into the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries site screening tool. BirdLife South Africa has once again been able to confirm that breeding white-winged flufftails have been recorded at Middlepunt Wetland near Dullstroom, thus confirming the species as a regular breeding bird in South Africa. BirdLife South Africa's work has reshaped our understanding of the biology of this elusive bird, and we are now in a much better position to conserve it and its habitat. Our white-winged flufftail work is a partnership with a number of organizations, including the Middlepunt Wetland Trust. I'd also like to acknowledge the important role that Eskom has played, including through the Ngula Partnership, in our efforts to conserve this critically endangered flufftail. After the welfare rescue of 2,000 abandoned chicks at Campus Dam at the end of January 2019, BirdLife South Africa associates, contracted ornithologists and staff monitored the chicks and flock on site for nearly 3 months. We supported fundraising, identified and raised awareness about conservation action, and we supported ChemJV with the efforts to assist the Salt Lake municipality with fixing broken sewage infrastructure and to secure more water for Campus Dam. The algal concentration as a measure of available food for the flamingos was monitored remotely using satellite imagery and machine learning algorithms. These were developed by BirdLife South Africa's Robin Killane. Many of our members and bird clubs donated funds towards the rehabilitation of rescued birds, and ChemJV and the Hanshausen Charitable Trust are also thanked for supporting our conservation efforts at Campus Dam. We're very grateful to the Booth family for access and support, to Esther van der Vestes and Kutse of ChemJV, Donovan Smith, a vet in Kimberley, Doug Hairbottle with the Salt Lake municipality, and Debbie Smith, who monitored the repatriated juvenile birds during 2019. In particular, I'd like to commend Tanya Anderson, who's undertaken a huge amount of work at Campus Dam during the last 2 decades. She's really been coordinating all of the work that takes place there, collating and archiving information about the wetland and its flamingos. Moving on to our seabird work. Our seabird work is supported by a number of important donors, including Pamela Isdell, the Charles van der Mabbe Trust, and the RSPB. In 2019, our penguin conservation research work included establishing the infrastructure for a new African penguin colony at De Hoop Nature Reserve, deploying 21 GSM loggers on non-breeding African penguins to track the movements of those birds while they're not breeding. Our Albatross Task Force continues to make great strides in the efforts to conserve albatrosses and petrels. And in 2019, a new bird scaring line was incorporated into permits for domestic longline fleets. 82 bird scaring lines were sold to the Hague trawl fishery, and 12 bird scaring lines were sold to the longline fishery. We train members of Ocean View Association for Persons with Disabilities to manufacture new bird scaring lines according to the new design. We spent a total of 680 observer hours on fishing vessels at sea. We also represented our seabird conservation concerns at the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries Small Pelagic Scientific Working Group meetings. During 2019, we assisted our sister organization in the UK, the RSPB, with the Gough Island Restoration Program, and we traveled to Gough Island as part of the annual relief voyage and delivered critical infrastructure for project activities. The Mouse-Free Marion website was upgraded, and we continue to raise funds for this important project, and the support role we provide to the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. Okay, moving on to our site and habitat work and our regional work. So the work in these areas has been extensive and varied during the 2019, so I'll only report on a few highlights. Firstly, we hosted the Global Key Biodiversity Area Committee meeting in Cape Town in September, and we presented an assessment of KBAs in South Africa, the first country in the world to complete this important exercise. We supported the establishment of Key Biodiversity Area key biodiversity area national coordination groups in 7 African countries with a growing interest from 11 other countries. We supported and built capacity in Mozambique on red listing for multiple taxa, including plants, insects, and birds. And as a result, 36 key biodiversity areas were identified. We undertook the first country-level assessment to test other effective area-based conservation measures, which resulted in the formulation of a national OECM strategy and global methodology to assist other countries assessing their OECMs. Distribution maps for more than 70 bird species were submitted to the South African KBA reviews process. The workshop we hosted, Safeguarding Priority Estuaries in the Western Cape, explored the legal mechanisms and other conservation tools available for formally protecting key estuarine water bodies in the Western Cape. Through our efforts, more than 7,000 hectares of terrestrial and estuarine habitat will be declared as the Bird River Estuary's first protected area. And I would like to thank Gaynor Rupert for all the support she gives our estuary work in the Western Cape, as well as the provision she provides to our landscape conservation program. We provided an invasive alien plan management unit clearing plan for the Matonzo protected environment, and this followed clearing of 20 hectares of alien plants in late 2019. We also secured funding through the East Atlantic Flyway Initiative for a 2-year pilot project trialling estuarine erosion control techniques at the Berg River. BirdLife South Africa continues to drive biodiversity stewardship initiatives across South Africa, with 30,000 hectares of pristine grassland in the upper Volga protected environment being declared. In collaboration with Conservation Outcomes, we facilitated the declaration of 2 misspelled grassland nature reserves in the KZN Midland grasslands. These are Trewergi, which is 470 hectares in size, and Tully-Tudlin, which is 1,500 hectares in size. Another picture of the grasslands. So much of our advocacy work has been to address the threats which are impacting on the grassland biome and species like those 2, which are the yellow-breasted pipit and Boerter's lark. We are concerned about a number of threatened and endemic birds which frequent the grasslands, as well as the rich diversity of other plants and animals which occur in this region. The strategic water source areas in the grassland biome also sustain a large proportion of the people in our country. As part of an 8-member civil society coalition and with assistance from the Centre for Environmental Rights, BirdLife South Africa played an active role in safeguarding the Mabola protected environment in southern Mpumalanga from a proposed coal mine. We also contributed to the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries development of a national site screening tool. This geographically based web-enabled application allows project developers and environmental consultants to screen a proposed development site for any environmental sensitivity. To support the national site screening tool, we've also worked with SANBI and a number of specialists to develop a set of best practice guidelines for species impact assessments. We've also been very involved in renewable energy work, and this work is funded by Investec. During 2019, we shone the light on Africa at the Conference on Wind Energy and Wildlife Impact in Scotland, where we delivered 2 presentations, including the first national scale overview of the diversity of birds impacted by turbine collisions on the continent. We published research on the impacts of renewable energy technologies. These have been done in collaboration with colleagues at the Fitzpatrick Institute of African Ornithology at the University of Cape Town. We also drew on science to improve planning, impact assessment and management of wind farms. And for example, we drafted the guidelines for black harriers and wind energy. We also contributed to the establishment of a new forum to enhance the capacity of BirdLife in Africa to engage in the energy sector. We've also been very involved in AV tourism work, and in fact this work will increase from this year because we've now managed to employ a AV tourism project manager with funding from Swarovski and Nick and Jane Prentice. During 2019, we continued to work with and support the community bird guides who over the last decade and a half have been trained, mentored and supported by BirdLife South Africa. I need to thank the many people and organizations, including our members and bird clubs, who donated to the Community Bird Guide Relief Fund. The guide's income has dried up as a result of the lockdown regulations, and with donations we've received, we were able to provide 35 guides with a total of 200,000 Rand in April and May. The third tranche of disbursements will be made next week. With the support of the Airports Company of South Africa, during 2019 we provided a second year of post-qualification support to 5 nature guides. So that's the end of my report, and I'd just like to thank everybody who helps us give conservation wings. This report is a report on a large number of people and organizations' contributions, but particularly the hard work and dedication of our staff. Going forward, things aren't going to be easy, and we realize that. We've established committees to try and determine how we're going to deal with a very different new world order. I'd like to thank everybody for their support. And to end off, I'd just like to encourage those who aren't Conservation League donors to consider becoming a Conservation League donor this year. You can win a fantastic prize. Conservation League donors, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, provide some much needed support to our organization. We're also raising funding through a raffle. We've sold just under 600 of the 1,000 tickets. We'd like to sell all 1,000 tickets within the next month. This is important income, unrestricted income for our organization and its work. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'd like to just ask you if you would like to support us to adopt Mark's report. If you could just raise your hands. See a lot of hands being raised. Thank you very much. And Mark, on behalf of the board, I'd like to congratulate you and every single member of the staff for another very, very successful year. And I'm sure with the same dedication going forward, we'll be able to overcome the challenges that are going to arise for the next year.
So, on to the question.
Yes, we've got one question that has been raised, which Mark will just quickly deal with as part of his report.
Yes, Neil Smith has asked if he'd like to know if there's a strategy or policy at BirdLife South Africa for placing or recruiting people in senior management positions from previously disadvantaged groups. Neil, thanks very much for that question. Yes, in fact, we do have a policy and plan. We have an employment equity plan, which we report to the Department of Labour on, and it remains our priority to employ people from historically disadvantaged groups. And in fact, we have an employment equity committee as well, which has representatives from different demographic groups in the organization, which meets several times a year. It remains an absolute priority of our organization to transform and for our organization to represent the different demographic groups of our country. Thank you for that question, Neil.
Thank you very much, Mark. And now, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Manuela Kroch, our Honorary Treasurer, for her first report.
Thank you so much, Philip. Mark, have you? Okay, perfect. So just good morning to all our attendees, and thank you so much for making the time to join us. It is a freezing winter's day, and sitting in this little house with all the windows open is really making me quite twitchy. But at least we are keeping the virus at bay. So first off, I'd like to just point out that our annual financial statements have been finalised, albeit a little late this year, thanks to the subsequent events, the work that needed to be done by the external auditors. And I'm pleased to report that the organisation has once again received a clean audit opinion from KPMG, its external auditors. On slide 1, I've just actually summarised a few salient features rather than taking you through the financials as a whole. And I'm delighted to report, as Mark has already mentioned, that thanks to his and his team's continuous hard work and efforts, that BirdLife can report its 10th consecutive year of generating an operating profit. BirdLife South Africa has well-diversified sources of income and funding, which does provide resilience in these trying times. First off, the business division has reported income from operations of 434,000, with both income and expenditure at similar levels to that of the prior year. The conservation division unusually has reported a small loss in the current year, which was due to a shortfall in funding for the Special Projects Programme. This programme was closed at the end of the year. The other figures that I have highlighted are really cash and cash equivalents and income received in advance, which have shown pleasing growth and reflect careful cash management on behalf of the team. If we move on to slide 2, I thought I would just show some trends over the years, as I've always believed in my previous life that the trend is your friend. And the two things that two graphs that I have represented, the first one is a income from the business and conservation divisions over the last 9 years. which reflect the growth in income from just over 10 million to 37 million rand, which is really a wonderful story and is thanks to all of our donors and members. What is most pleasing to see here is the increased confidence in our conservation work, which is demonstrated in the increase in their income balances or income generated over the years. The second graph reflects cash balances versus income received in advance. And to my mind, these are the two figures that most prominently drive our balance sheet, especially now that we have moved our investments over to the BirdLife Trust. What they do show is that growth in both is proportionate to the growth in the growth in cash balances is proportionate to growth in income. But what is most noteworthy and makes for a really good story is that there's a clear improvement in surplus cash over the years. If you look to our earlier years, you can see that we were funding operations out of income received in advance, where we currently now are in a position that we have surplus funds which can cover up to 5 months of our core costs, which really does provide comfort, especially in these difficult times. I'd just like to congratulate the team on managing their position so carefully and making my job so easy. The next agenda point that I would like to just move on to is agenda point number 8, which deals with the appointment of external auditors. I'd like to propose the reappointment of KPMG as external auditors for the year ahead, which will be the year ending 31st December 2020. And please may I ask our members to show their support through by a show of hands.
Okay.
I think we have sufficient support, so thank you so much for that. And I would now like to hand back to Philip.
Thank you very much, Manuela. Could I also please ask by a show of hands whether you are happy to adopt Manuela's report, the Treasurer's report? Okay, thank you very much. There is one question that's been raised relating to the difference between the business division and conservation division numbers. Mark, are you going to answer?
Okay, so Sean, thanks very much for your question, asking for clarification on what the business and conservation divisions are. The business division is essentially the administrative side of the organization, a very small component of the organization. In fact, it comprises 8 core staff and membership and Wackerstroom Center. It's a very small component, and essentially what this team of people do is they provide the support to the conservation staff. So all of the conservation staff reside in the conservation division. That's the bulk of the staff that we employ. So we have these 2 divisions, the business division and the conservation division. And I just have to tell you that the business division is headed up by Fani du Plessis, who is a qualified chartered accountant. Fani's been with us for about 8 years. The conservation division is headed up by Dr. Hanleen Smith-Robinson. And on the 1st of June, she celebrated her 10th anniversary with BirdLife South Africa. I hope that answers your question. But Sean, if you do have any, would like any more clarification, please drop me an email. I'll be happy to answer and to engage with you around that.
Thanks very much, Mark. And for those of you that have the annual report, if you look at page 32 and 33 of the report, you will find the abridged financial statements on those pages. If we now move on to item number 9, the nomination and election of office bearers, you will find a list of all the office bearers of the organization on page 36 of the annual report. And it's to be noted that during the year under review, the following change took place on the board of directors. Dr. Mark Brown resigned from the board on the 22nd of September 2019. Mark was the regional representative for the Western Cape Birding Forum, and currently this position is still vacant. And then, as previously announced, the term of office of Professor Colleen Downs as our honorary president has come to an end. And I'm going to hand over to Mark, who will make an announcement on that position. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Philip. We've had one nomination for honorary president, Professor Chinsame Turan, who is present at this meeting. So thank you very much, Professor, for joining us. She's a paleobiologist. She's won many awards including South African Women of the Year. She's published many, many scientific papers, and she's also authored 4 books. She has a BSc from WITS, a BSc Honours degree from WITS, a PhD from WITS, and a postdoctoral degree from the University of Pennsylvania. She's currently employed at the Department of Biological Sciences at the University of Cape Town. She's very well liked by her students, and in fact, 3 people separately nominated her as our next honorary president. She's also a very keen and dedicated birdwatcher, and I understand a committed conservationist. So that's the one nomination we've received, Mr. Chairman.
Can I again please ask for a show of hands if everyone's happy with that nomination? Thank you very much, and congratulations to our new honorary president. We look forward to working with you in the next 4 years. Mark, the initiatives and publications.
Okay, so as tradition at our AGMs, and this was one of our past chairman, Vernon Head's idea, is that we should announce initiatives and publications at the annual general meeting, so we've been doing so. Our AGM is held a little bit late this year for circumstances beyond our control, but I'm very pleased to announce 2 initiatives. Firstly, Bird of the Year 2020, which is the Southern Ground Hornbill. And we're very grateful to the Hanshausen Charitable Trust for supporting our Southern Ground Hornbill awareness efforts, as well as our partner, the Mabula Ground Hornbill Project, who's one of the BirdLife species guardians, for the support they're giving us during 2020. We developed a number of items to raise awareness, to raise funds for Bird of the Year. This includes the pin badge. These have become very popular amongst our members, and as well as the fluffy toys you can see there. And we also developed a lot of resources. On the left in that image is the poster, which is distributed in every copy of the March-April issue of the magazine. Spare copies are available at Estill House if anybody would like them. We also distribute them widely to schools and to other education facilities. We also develop really excellent learning resources, and you can see the 2 examples on the right. These are done this year by Caitlin Judge, who's a very talented artist, as you can see from those illustrations. Those are uploaded into social media, onto our website, and also emailed to a growing database of people who are interested in receiving these education resources. I'd like to thank Caitlin for her work. The second initiative to announce is our checklist of South Africa's birds. These are produced every year, and this year distributed in the January-February issue of our magazine. So we're very proud of our country. We remain patriotic of our country and obviously interested in conserving our country's birds. So this checklist is updated annually by a committee. You can see in that slide, there are 870 bird species in South Africa, of which 8 occur on the Prince Edward Islands. There were several species additions to the new checklist. You can see the Taita petrel, white tern, and Livingston's flycatcher. A few name changes. We are guided by the IOC when we make these changes. I'd like to thank Durham for sponsoring this annual checklist. Also the BirdLife South Africa List Committee, which is chaired by Dr. Chris Lotz, and Ernst Retief and Martin Taylor play a really important role in ensuring that this checklist gets produced annually. If anybody would like copies of the checklist, you can actually download them on our website. Electronic copies available there, but if you would like hard copies, we do have a few available at Estill House.
Okay, we're almost done. Item 11, resolutions. I'm glad to report no resolutions required to be dealt with today. And then moving on to any other business, no other business matters have been submitted to the board for consideration. From my side, I would like to just take this opportunity of thanking all my board members for their sterling work during the year, as well as the members of our subcommittees who have supported us. And then finally, also to our trustees, headed up by David Lawrence, our trustees of the BirdLife National Trust, for the great work that they're doing, building up a sustainable fund for our organization. Then to all the participants, our members and supporters who've joined us this morning, thank you very much for your the time that you've devoted to this. And hopefully next year we'll be able to revert back to our usual format for the AGM. And I would like to just wish you all a safe journey through the challenging time ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chair. It's just a message from Robert Smith, which maybe we just read out. So Robert Smith has very kindly typed into the Q&A box. He said, I'd like to propose a motion of thanks and appreciation to Mark Anderson and his team for their sterling work in bringing BirdLife South Africa to become the prestigious organization that it is today. The tireless efforts and the long hours that are put in by him and his staff are sincerely appreciated. This needs to be recorded at this AGM. Robert, those are very kind words and very, very gratefully appreciated by our team. So thank you very much for them.
And finally, from my side, just to thank Melissa House-Whitecross very much for coordinating and controlling our Zoom AGM this morning, and to our secretary, Dr. Isabel Human, for being with us this morning. Thank you very much to you too.
Okay, thank you everyone, and thanks in particular to our two honorary patrons, Gaynor Rupert and Pamela Ursel, joining from different parts of the world. We do appreciate your support and your attendance of our meeting. Thank you everyone. In a moment we're going to end this AGM. As I said, it will be available to watch on our YouTube channel within a few days. Thank you.